It's wishful thinking to believe that you can forever be a child, that you can forever cling on to simplicity, to black and white and hard edges, forever remain untouched by change, since today's image in the mirror is the same as yesterday's. Forever don a cloak of invincibility, wield a conqueror's sword. Forever see a vibrant world only illuminated by sparkling sunlight. The ugliness of reality remaining hidden in far-flung shadows. The rose-colored mirage will dissipate as the ground starts to cool with the frost of cynicism. You'll realize sitting crisscross applesauce is bad for your knees, and the golden rule is neither golden nor a rule, and Disney movies uphold the white cis heteropatriarchy. You'll realize your parents aren't gods, and happily ever after is propaganda, and the naivete you wear as a shield is fragile and full of holes. You'll realize the world is brutal and callous and senseless and fucked up. But it's beautiful, regardless.
So, I finished this painting on the 15th of July in the year of our Lord 2022, as in 2 months ago. It was definitely one of the most ambitious pieces I've ever done, and I really wanted to share the process with you all. Making it took me almost 80 hours, and I recorded the whole thing. But you know what happens sometimes? Shit happens. In the middle of editing, I got the little beach ball of doom, and then my hard drive pulled a Queen Elizabeth and said, ah. I immediately sent it into data recovery at Best Buy to see if they could salvage anything, but after waiting almost 2 months, I finally just heard back that they found nothing at all. Best Buy? I would actually venture to contend it was more of a mediocre buy. Bruh! The Best Buy lady who called me was like, "I'm so sorry. I have some terrible news for you." I was like, "Oh shit, who died?" The answer is, all my files in the history of ever. I lost everything on that hard drive. All my old videos, footage, raw image files, all my essays and projects from high school and middle school, all my childhood photos, all my hentai porn. You know what could help me pay for a new hard drive and cloud storage? Your support on Patreon. I lost it all. I am sad about it, but I'm trying to look at this as a lesson in ephemera. Everything is temporary, just like childhood. I already sank like 30 hours into editing the original video when my hard drive passed away, so that was kind of tragic. But even though I lost all the time-lapse footage, I still had the voiceover file saved. And I was able to scavenge some clips I shot on my phone from the trash bin of my computer, and I shot some new footage of me varnishing the painting. So I decided to make this video anyway. This video was brought to you by the sunk cost fallacy. In the 2 months since I initially recorded the voiceover, quite a bit has changed. So I'll be jumping in here and there with updates. It'll be a wacky little collaboration with myself from the past, which is kind of meta, because you get to witness, in real time, me doing some growing up.
College. It's a shitter. I will not lie to you, but it's a good shitter. Well, you watched me make a painting about growing up and the loss of innocence and childhood nostalgia. I thought it would be appropriate to reflect upon my freshman year of college, my first taste of quasi-adulthood. So in June, I wrapped up my first year at Stanford University. I think now, about a month later, I've had enough time and distance to be able to step back and do the whole introspection thing and try to evaluate how I've changed and what I've learned. Maybe. Perhaps. I think I did grow in positive ways, at least a little teeny weeny bit. I definitely have more confidence in my own self-sufficiency. Like, I always believed I could be girl boss independent, but before it was purely theoretical, and now I've actually put it into practice. I can and I will survive out here. Also, I've been actively trying to disentangle my sense of self-worth from achievement and accept that it's okay to just be. People at Stanford are dummy impressive. Kid down the hall coded a contact tracing app for the Brazilian government. Friend Sneaky Link invented a watch that detects cardiac indications of opioid overdoses. Girl sitting in the corner of the dining hall was named in Forbes 30 Under 30. But, to my shock and surprise, being surrounded by so many high-achieving people was strangely good for my mental health. Hear me out. I think I'm a lot less insecure than I used to be, because in my mind, what underlies insecurity is the what if. Like, what if I'm not good enough? What if everyone finds out I'm a fraud? But now, I know for a fact that other people are just objectively better than me. I no longer feel as much pressure to try and be the best at everything, or anything actually, because it's just so unrealistic, it's comical. So, in other words, I now have confidence in my understanding of the limits of my own capabilities. For example, I will simply never be good at math, or computer science, or chemical engineering, and that is okay. This might sound like some backhanded self-shittery, but I'm telling you, growing comfortable in mediocrity has been so revolutionary for my self-acceptance. Being okay with being mid is empowering. The way I think about it is like, some people can get by on 5 hours of sleep and be thriving, fully functional, fully productive human beings. Old me would have been jealous. Imagine all the things they could accomplish with those extra hours every day. They literally get more life to live. But now I'm like, I am simply not built that way. Homegirl gotta sleep. So instead of chasing the unattainable, I might as well make peace with the fact that I do have intrinsic limits, so I'm gonna just work with what I got. And when other people do cool shit, instead of feeling like, oh, now I have to do shit that's as cool as their cool shit, I'll just admire them from afar and be like, go bestie, you're doing some cool shit. It's a work in progress though. I am not gonna sit here and pretend I've reached nirvana and never get insecure, never compare myself, never doubt my worth. I definitely do. Like, a lot. But this is just a mentality shift that has been helpful for me. It's baby steps. And this unfortunately doesn't mean I'm not still a tryhard. I very much am. It's just directed more inward rather than outward. I'm almost purely driven by the desire to one-up myself rather than other people. Unfortunately, I don't think I've ever not been a tryhard. In 10th grade, my English teacher was concerned about me, so he was like, Jackie, what do you do for fun? What do you do in your free time? I was like, oh, come again? Fun? Definition, please? Language of origin? Use it in a sentence? I've always been aware of my try-hard tendencies, but I thought it was just in the context of my tiny-ass high school. But then coming to college and realizing that I'm still a try-hard at Stanford? Now that was a rude motherfucking awakening. I was like, girly, this is embarrassing. Stop doing your textbook readings and go touch some grass, god damn. Problem is, I don't even know why I try so hard. It feels like I don't have a choice, like I'm physically incapable of not trying. I'm not motivated by accolades or external metrics of achievement. Like, rationally, I do not give a singular shit about grades. They're not representative of actual learning, they have little bearing on future employment opportunities, and they're just manifestations of the dehumanizing and reductive quantification of personal value imposed by our capitalist society, tools to brainwash the little children into being good, obedient neoliberal workhorses. And yet, I can't bring myself to half-ass an essay, or a problem set, or trivial piece of homework. I've never not done an assigned reading in my life. I can't even skim or I'll feel guilty. It's the principle of it. I don't even know what principle exactly, Maybe that I have to maximize my learning at all times, or that not trying my hardest is disrespectful to my teachers and to myself, or that I must pursue perfection at all costs in order to be deserving of self-worth, or maybe I'm just a masochist. This all might sound like a flex, like, woe is me, I can't procrastinate. But I promise you, it really, truly is not. I'm only sharing all this because I am firsthand evidence of how internalizing hustle culture on steroids is not pretty. You know how people say work smart, not hard? I am very work hard and work stupid. I am ridiculously inefficient in getting things done because I get so caught up in the details, and I jeopardize my mental health, spending time with the people I love, and actually living life. For example, last quarter I took this class that's a notorious Stanford shitter called Math 51.
Linear algebra, multivariable calculus, and modern applications.
At most schools, this would probably be a year's worth of content or more, but Stanford was like, let's be quirky and do it all in 10 weeks, haha, slay! That shit was actually so miserable. The medians for the exams were consistently in the 40s. I mean, if your students are all failing, it might be time to reevaluate how you're teaching the class, just putting it out there. I don't like math, I don't understand math, I don't desire to understand math, yet still, I was like, dude man, I gotta try. So for 3 months straight, I spent probably upwards of 8 hours every single day studying for this dummy class. I brute forced it and ended up somehow getting an A, but when I got my grade back, I felt literally no joy. No joy. I was like, bruh, I did all that, and for what? I'm gonna forget everything I learned within a week. I'm never gonna use this shit again in my life. I've barely seen my friends for months, and my mental health is in the toilet. I felt like I'd done all this growth and exploration at the beginning of the year, and then I just...
Revenge!
So, now I actually do know why I try so hard. Back in 2020, when I was fully in my sad girl era, I made this silly little TikTok.
I'm a bit of a control freak. I live my life by checklists. Every day I wake up, I work out, I shower, I eat, I do my classes. Same thing, day in and day out. I cook once on Saturdays, then eat the same thing for the whole week. I'm afraid of unproductivity. I listen to podcasts on 2x speed. I submit essays weeks ahead of time. I worship my Google Calendar. I try and I try to reverse the laws of entropy with my own bare hands. I'm always in control. Until I'm not. I'm not in control when I eat a whole jar of peanut butter in one sitting, when I pick up my face until it bleeds, when I let boxes and paint tubes pile higher and higher until the living room is a war zone. It's when I try to force myself hardest to be a machine that my humanity screams out the loudest. When I let myself get lost in the granularity, when I reduce life into a perpetual series of tasks, I give myself an easy way out. When I'm focused on the rote mechanics of doing rather than being, I don't have to step back. I don't have to find my why. Maybe I'm scared I won't have an answer.
And also this one.
I suffer a little from what I call toxic perfectionism. In 6th grade, I cried when I got my first A-. It was on a quiz in the advanced math class I had skipped a year to join. In 7th grade, I spent more than 70 hours on a cell biology project, replete with a hand-drawn game board, hand-sculpted figurines, handwritten flashcards, until my mom screamed at me to get on with my life. In 8th grade, I started to hate the act of writing. So much time was consumed waiting, fingers twitching, cursor blinking, for the elusive, perfect word to fall from the sky and resuscitate my paralyzed mind. The summer before freshman year, I became aware of my body, another obstacle to conquer, another blemish to refine. I systematically starved myself until my hair fell out and my period stopped and the world turned cold. Perfectionism devoured me until I was hollow. I've never felt good enough, smart enough, pretty enough, kind enough. Enough. Newton's third law of motion states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. When you try too hard to bend the unyielding universe to your own will, inevitably, you're the one that's gonna break.
The cringe, it hurts me. But TikTok seemed to like them. Most of the comments were like, hashtag relatable, which is a little hashtag unfortunate. Some of the comments gave me advice to do either Christianity or Schedule 1 narcotics.
Dude, chill and smoke some. You're way too extra. Let God take control. Do some acid. It helps you eat. Have you tried giving your life to God? Try smoking a blunt. Girl, pray to Jesus to get that perfectionist demon out of you. Jesus was the only one that was perfect, so you don't have to believe in Jesus. You need Jesus.
And some of the comments were low-key on to me.
Bro, this video has to be a joke. Toxic professionalism? What the F is that? OCD? Because that's the only mental illness I can't think of that makes you have to be perfect. And it's not even in the sense this girl is talking about. So if started off by choosing your identity to now choosing your mental illness, this is low-key disrespectful to people that actually suffer from a mental illness. She could have said she was just dealing with typical teenage girl depression, and the video would have been over within 10 seconds. And all these people are feeling so bad. So you're OCD, big time. Just say that instead of toxic perfectionism.
I don't have it, so that would minimize and misconstrue the struggles of people who actually suffer from OCD.
That aged well, 'cause surprise! I'm OCD! So, shortly after finishing this painting, a series of events occurred that suddenly made me reevaluate myself and the things I do and the things I think. And I realized, this shit is not fucking normal. I made a list of reasons why I thought I might have OCD, and it ended up being a 13-page single-spaced document.
A little OCD of me.
The contents of the document included my very specific procedures for consuming citrus.
Oranges. Using the nail of my right thumb, I make a vertical incision in the peel from pedicel to styler end. I then peel a fruit, being careful to keep the peel intact so that it comes off in one piece. I then separate all the segments, peel off excess pith, and eat the segments from smallest to largest. For each segment, I use my fingers to split it in half and eat the smaller half first. Grapefruit. I cut the grapefruit horizontally, with the top half deliberately smaller, which I eat first. I then identify the largest segment, segment A. If the segment immediately to the left of segment A, segment B, is smaller than the segment immediately to the right of segment A, segment C, I start with segment B and continue eating counterclockwise, ending with segment A. If the reverse is true, C is smaller than B, I eat the grapefruit clockwise and end with segment A. I then repeat the procedure with the bottom half of the grapefruit.
But also some more anecdotal illustrations of my mental wackery. For example, I used to journal every day because the self-help gurus all say journaling is good. Get in touch with your emotions, reflect upon your actions, do some introspection. I started in July 2018, initially writing pretty short and concise little reflections on things I was grateful for or areas where I wanted to improve. But gradually, the journal entries grew longer and longer until I was basically cataloging every detail of my day. I started dreading the entries, and sometimes they took hours to write, but I refused to let myself sleep until I finished. Eventually, instead of living for the moment, I felt like I was living for the sake of recording. I felt constantly stressed about making sure I retained everything in my memory so that I could write it down later. The anxiety started to consume me. They say journaling improves mental health, but it kind of destroyed mine.
I was scammed, bamboozled, deceived.
So I had to stop. My last daily journal entry was in February of 2020. Another example. A lot of people ask me where I get my vocabulary from because they think I know big words sometimes. Well, when I was in the 7th grade, at 12 years of age, my mother forced me to take the SAT. Just for shits and gigs, I guess? I don't even know. Yeah, I was 12. This was the old version of the SAT, which had a vocab section where you basically just had to know the definitions of a bunch of words. During that period when I was studying, whenever I encountered a word I didn't know, I had to look it up because I was paranoid that I would be tested on it. This sparked a compulsion where, to this day, if I see or hear a word I don't know in a book or article or podcast or a movie, even if I'm pretty sure I know the word, but there's even just like an inkling of doubt, I have to stop and look it up or I'll get anxious. It's better now because I just know more words, so I don't have to stop as often, but it made consuming media so goddamn miserable because I'd have to pause every 2 seconds to go consult dictionary.com. When I actually took the SAT for real, my junior year of high school, to study, I took every single free practice test on Khan Academy, which was 13. I got a 1580 and I hated myself for it, which is so dummy irrational because I know objectively it is a good score. It's 2 questions wrong out of 154. But my silly little brain was like, you need to get a 1600.
You need to get a 1600.
You need to get a 1600.
So my dumbass paid another $55 to retake a 1580 SAT. And did I get a 1600? No, I did not. and I hated myself for it even more. And then I hated myself for hating myself because I knew how fucking absurd it was.
It was so stupid.
Literally so stupid.
Actually so stupid.
It wasn't about GPA or getting into college or anything practical. It was just, I need a 1600 for no reason. Vibes, I guess. I was like,
why am I like this?
but now I understand. I'm just a little bit in the head. So I saw a psychologist and got diagnosed with OCD and OCPD. OCD is an anxiety disorder characterized by intrusive thoughts and compulsive behaviors. OCPD is a personality disorder characterized by excessive preoccupation with rules, order, control, and perfection. According to Mr. Psychologist Man, people with both can sometimes easily separate them and tell which is which, but in my case, they kind of blend into each other. Fun little silly goofy fact. The day I found out I had OCD was the very same day my hard drive failed.
Yeah, double homicide.
So yeah, this news kind of really fucked with my self-perception. Not that there's anything wrong with mental illness itself. I don't really care about the social stigma around being mentally ill. I mean, clearly, I'm telling the whole damn internet, but it's a tad distressing to reflect on all your thought patterns, behaviors, personality traits, habits, identity, and realize, baby girl, that's a little pathological. And also I was like, is my whole personality a sham? How do I reconcile the joyful, optimistic, happy person I think I am with the anxiety, neurosis, and destructiveness clearly present? I think I was in denial for so long because, one, I don't think my case is that severe, so it was easier for me to pretend I do not see. And two, my OCD, OCPD traits manifest in ways that are kind of glorified by the grind, hustle, productivity culture.
Hard work, dedication.
I've basically been rewarded for this shit my whole life. I may have attained some success and validation on paper, but at the minor cost of destroying myself. I'm trying to accept the diagnosis not as a conviction or condemnation, but just as a new framework for understanding who I am. Functionally, nothing about me has changed. It's just new information. And hopefully this information will allow me to better identify maladaptive patterns and empower me to choose if I want to do something about it. So this is the answer. This is why I try so hard. I'm not a brainwashed capitalist workhorse. I'm just mentally ill. I guess the only usefulness mathematics has ever had in my life was traumatizing me to the point of a mental health awakening. Shit, man. I guess the tortured artist stereotype is true.
Okay, quick little SparkNote summary of how my year progressed. Stanford's on the quarter system, so there's fall, winter, and spring, and then summer is the fourth quarter. So, fall quarter, thriving era. I was taking these humanities classes I really enjoyed, and my workload was silly goofy. I had so much free time, I genuinely did not know what to do with myself. I went out with my friends pretty much every weekend, sometimes multiple times a weekend, which was fun, but I feel like part of the motivation was low-key just boredom. Like I simply did not have other shit to do. But let me tell you, I was a master of self-deception. Every time I went to a grimy frat party, I was like, this one's gonna be better. It never got better. But basically, fall quarter, I was big chillin'. Chillin' so big, in fact, that I panicked and felt like I had to compensate by academically ass-fucking myself. When I decided to go to Stanford, I made a promise to myself.
I will never take a single math or computer science class at this institution. Silicon Valley can suck my dick.
Bitch, you thought. Took me like 2 months to fold. In winter quarter, I took both math and CS. Also, in February, I acquired the coronavirus from my roommate. Spit sisters for real. And then spring quarter was even worse. I was taking fewer classes, but they were a lot harder for me. I really #played myself by making the most booty cheek schedule. On Mondays and Wednesdays, I had back-to-back classes from 9:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon, so I did not get to put any food in my body until 2:45 p.m. It only happened twice a week, which isn't the worst, but it definitely impacted my general quality of life and ability to learn. In math class, I was not thinking about eigenvectors and orthogonal matrices. In geology, I was not thinking about the consistency of basaltic lava. You know what I was thinking about, though? The love of my life, the Arriaga family dining commons. Over quarantine, I feel like I was able to cultivate this zen, I don't give a fuck attitude. I did school virtually for my junior and senior year, so I was basically just chilling in my basement alone for 2 years. Being distanced from the toxic environment of my high school was very good for me. It allowed me to start discovering my identity and values and interests, isolated from the judgment of others. And I think I was able to somewhat carry this with me into the beginning of college. I was like, I'm gonna just do my own thing, try my best, but have fun exploring. But then as the year went on, I felt myself slowly being suffocated by the Stanford bubble and slowly regressing back into my old habits of overworking myself and trying to do the most, which is a little
Ruh-roh, danger zone.
Girly, that sounds to me like OCD.
I'm trying to give myself grace and accept the fact that growth is not necessarily linear. Even if the long-term trajectory is upward, there are always fluctuations along the way. Like the S&P 500.
Stonk's theory of personal development?
As to what I'm studying, right now I'm planning to hopefully maybe double major in art and earth systems, which is Stanford's interdisciplinary environmental science major. I've always been passionate about sustainability, and I think climate change is one of the most pressing issues we're facing. It literally affects all of humanity and every other species, and it only amplifies existing inequities, so it's very much entangled with all other facets of social justice. I think before, when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to study, I approached it by trying to play 4D chess in my head and map out my future and viable career paths and stuff. But I decided that instead, I'm just going to study what excites me and figure it out along the way. I'm still not sure where the intersection between art and environment lies, but hopefully eventually I'll be able to carve out a niche where they overlap. I go back and forth like every day on whether or not I want to pursue art as a career. Here's the thing. I love it, like a lot, but part of me very much suffers from internalized capitalism and is like, art isn't productive, art doesn't help anyone. Intellectually, I know that artists add so much value to society and culture and life. But I feel like I, Jackie Lou, specifically can't contribute valuable art because I'm not good enough, imposter syndrome, blah blah blah. And then I also have this irrational conception of work as suffering. For a while, early in high school, I gaslit myself into thinking I wanted to be a surgeon because it was like, okay, you're guaranteed to tangibly improve the world since you're literally saving lives, so there's less moral gray area. But also, it was like the most miserable career I could think of. Every time I even thought about the prospect of going to med school, I got this pit of dread in my stomach. But I'd somehow brainwashed myself into accepting that this would be my life. But then I snapped out of it and was like, girl, what? Why? You don't have to do this to yourself? So I know it's stupid, but I still have this voice in the back of my head that's like, art is fun, therefore it's not legitimate work. Another reason I hesitate to pursue art, which is more pragmatic, is that I worry about burnout. It's kind of tough when your livelihood becomes dependent on creative output, which is by nature erratic and unpredictable. There's this imperative to constantly produce, pressure to appeal to audiences and algorithms, and desire to continually outperform yourself. And that's not to mention the money part. How the fuck do you make money? So yeah, I don't know. I'll probably change my mind in like a week.
And change my mind I did. Y'all, I think I want to be an artist. After my diagnosis, I was doing a lot of self-reflection, and I was thinking about my whole whack-ass notion of work as suffering.
I have to do things that are difficult because doing something I enjoy would be a cop-out.
And I realized, that sounds like mental illness to me. I tried online therapy for a month, but stopped because it got too expensive. You know what could help me pay for therapy though? Your support on Patreon. The targeted Instagram ads came for me, bruh. I literally googled therapy once and Zucky was on my ass.
Mental illness. For women. You know what'll cure your depression? Ketamine.
Anyway, my therapist said something that stuck with me. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to feel joy, to feel sadness, to feel anger, to believe you're worthy of seeking help, to do what you want in life. And I was like, whoa, crazy. What if I just let myself be happy? Art makes me happy, so what if I just did it? So what this means practically is that I think I'm gonna just study art and not earth systems anymore. I'm still gonna take earth systems classes that interest me, but not do the major. Earth Sys is a chonky major. It has many requirements, a lot of chem, a lot of bio, a lot of physics, also econ, so it would require spending time and energy that I would rather spend making and learning about art, exploring other realms like philosophy or sociology, doing fun things, and being with the people I love. And because the program is so structured, I think part of me is using it as like a shield to defer decision making. Like if I have this rigid plan laid out in front of me for the next few years, I don't have to question or make choices along the way. Why use brain when you can not use brain? The unknown is scary. I'm diving into that bitch. Choosing art feels like a tangible step in the direction of self-compassion and maybe healing. Another gem from my therapist. Honey, you're a hot mess, but hot messes can be cleaned up.
Upon arriving at Stanford, I quickly realized it is not a utopia. My expectations coming in were definitely too idyllic. Very naive of me, fitting for the theme of this painting. The palm trees are very sexy, this is true, but you still got your classism, racism, homophobia, sexual assault, high school pettiness, and everything in between. The classics. Yummy, scrumptious, delicious, delectable. And the elitism here is like, sheesh! I mean, I was anticipating a lot of wealth disparity, as can be expected from any gate-kept, pretentious academic institution. But I thought there would be a lot more woke rich people. Like,
oh, that's kind of embarrassing for me. Maybe I should harness my class consciousness and leverage my socioeconomic power to reify structural change in society.
Ass bitches. But it's more like,
I already own 12 yachts, but I want to be a hedge fund manager so I can buy more yachts.
ass bitches. Here's a little illustration of the magnitude of disparity. I had a bunch of friends in my dorm who were recipients of the Gates Scholarship, which is a scholarship for low-income students of color funded by the Gates Foundation. But also in my dorm was Phoebe Gates, as in Bill Gates' daughter. All love to Phoebe. I've never really interacted with her, so I don't know her at all, and I'm sure she's lovely. But it's just like, damn bruh. The inequality in this bitch is loud. My friend was like, bro, my education is literally getting paid for by that girl's daddy. I think all of this griminess is less a reflection of Stanford specifically, and more of the reality that life is unfair, and everywhere has shitty circumstances and shitty people. But there are also some very high quality humans who are ridiculously kind and loving and intelligent, and most importantly,
Swag.
I personally try to surround myself with those ones. The quarantine years taught me how to be very comfortable being alone, which I think was really valuable. This, plus the fact that my friends from home are so ridiculously incredible, made me feel secure in my relationships and gave me standards. Because I'd already had the experience of ideal friendship, I knew what to look for in others. So going into college, I actually didn't really experience much social anxiety or FOMO. I deliberately chose to spend time with people who I found energizing, affirming, compassionate, supportive, and who I could learn and grow from, instead of socializing for the sake of networking or assuaging loneliness. I also really appreciate the fact that college allows for so much more nuance and variety in friendships. You can be part of a close-knit friend group, or maintain a strong individual friendship, or be acquaintances who catch up over lunch once in a while. You're also a lot less restricted in the kinds of people you can be friends with. In high school, social structures were very rigid. You had your nerds, your jocks, your theater kids, your horse girls. You were pigeonholed into a box, and challenging it would violate the laws of the universe. In college, there's so much more freedom for self-expression and multifaceted relationships. Keeping up with home friends was tough. We would call and text when we could, but it's hard when everyone's scattered and busy doing their own thing. But I'm so lucky to have the kind of bonds that time and distance can't erode. I think the nature of these relationships has evolved, from the supposedly frivolous and juvenile high school friendship to the more robust and permanent adult friendship. Adult? That shit's serious. Graduating from high school is like a filter for the real ones. Choosing to keep in touch beyond high school is, in a way, a commitment to pursuing something long-term, ideally with forever in sight. Now that we don't have the convenience of proximity and shared lunch tables to reinforce the friendship, we have to be more deliberate. The relationship has to be cultivated and maintained, like actively watering a garden instead of just letting the rain fall. I think our society devalues friendships as subordinate to romantic relationships, as tiny electrons peripheral to the nucleus of romantic love. But if it's the right kind of friendship, the kind defined by radical acceptance and intimate trust and unconditional love and laughter that makes your ribs hurt, it can be just as meaningful and fulfilling. Soulmates come in all different forms. However, romantic relationships are pretty great. Fun fact, I have a boyfriend now. Kinda crazy. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully that's still true by the time you're watching this. Believe it or not, Tinder works sometimes. Also, the first time we hung out, I gave him COVID. That's how you get him. Coronavirus! This is the first relationship I've ever been in, and it has taught me quite a lot. For one, I've been forced to confront my own shortcomings like never before. Some of the flaws that I could have previously ignored or hidden, even the ones that only harm myself, now directly impinge on another human being. I feel like when you're with your friends, you're often interacting in specific contexts. You meet up and then disperse back to your separate lives. So you're more able to selectively give them the best parts of yourself. But when you're spending so much time with one other person, to the point where your lives are almost integrated, you gotta give them your whole self. It's a lot harder to hide the ugly shit. For example, I'm very often a people pleaser, and sometimes have trouble with self-advocacy or even figuring out what I want. I'm so indecisive that it takes me hours to grocery shop because I spend so long choosing between brands of canned beans.
Girly, that sounds to me like OCD.
This has never really been an issue earlier in my life. Like, at most it would cause friction in small interactions, like,
No, you choose the movie. No, you choose. No, you choose.
but now it very much affects my relationship dynamic. Partnerships are supposed to be bilateral, or multilateral if you're poly, so it's not fair for me to just be passive and expect my partner to do all the decision making. I actually gotta work on this shit. Another thing I'm navigating is learning how to separate my feelings when I feel so emotionally connected to another person. Like, if he's sad, I don't know how to not also be sad. My friend told me she used to have similar struggles, but her therapist said to her, "That's not being kind, that's being anxious. You can be empathetic and supportive to another person without constantly bearing their pain. Also, this is the first time in my life I've really been forced to take care of myself. By default, I'm very willing to sacrifice my mental and physical health if it means getting shit done. Anything for the Sigma grind.
Girly, that sounds to me like OC.
But now I have someone who holds me accountable, who forces me to rest, to slow down, to breathe. Before, I was the only one who got hurt, which was fine because I don't care about myself. But now, unfortunately, me not looking after myself is actively hurtful to someone else. It's a little frustrating sometimes because I don't know how else to operate. Like, bruh, just let me destroy myself in peace. But really, I'm just stupid grateful to have someone who cares about me this much. In retrospect, I think I was emotionally ready to enter a relationship because I didn't feel like anything was lacking in my life. I felt very much content with my circumstances and being by myself. So it wasn't like I needed another person to fill some kind of void. But I will say, being in a relationship has unlocked a dimension of joy and fulfillment beyond what I could have even imagined before. Love makes you corny. What can I say? Yelp review, 5 stars, very pleased with the hospitality in this establishment, would recommend to a friend. The title of this painting is Wishful Thinking, which came from the dandelion, like Make-A-Wish, and how wishing for the permanence of childhood bliss is futile because growing up is inevitable, blah blah blah. I actually came up with the concept back in January, but I put it on the back burner because I knew it was too complex to execute unless I had a lot of time. I was looking through old childhood photos and saw this one. It was like, LOL, look at me smoking that weed. Cause dandelions are... Yeah, so really this painting was inspired by a bad pun because I have the brain of a 5-year-old. I guess maybe growing up isn't inevitable? I incorporate a lot of self-portraiture in my art. I paint myself not because I enjoy it, but because I'm available. Looking at myself makes me so goddamn uncomfortable, but sacrifices must be made. I am quite a convenient model. I just do whatever pose I want, set up the lighting I want, use the self-timer on my phone, and then bam, reference photo. So that's why I have a bunch of photos in my camera roll of me doing stoner cosplay. The thing I'm fake smoking is a prop. It's a rolled up tissue. The joint is a metaphor, y'all. I would never actually smoke marijuana. This painting is bittersweet. Even though the loss of innocence is sad, the piece is also supposed to be a celebration of childhood, which is in many ways joyous and meaningful. I'm aware that I still am very much a child, in the sense that I cling onto idealism and hope, even when it might not make sense. Naivete can be a filter that distorts and romanticizes reality and breeds denial or complacency. But I instead try to utilize it as a tool to fight against nihilism and stand firm in my belief that a better world is possible. Once, when I was really little, my family went on vacation to Universal Studios in Florida. After hours of waiting in line for the brand new Harry Potter roller coaster, it was finally our turn. But about a minute into the ride, it broke down. The lights came on, illuminating the ugly truth. That we were not, in fact, gliding through a sparkling world of wizardry, but instead, chugging along in a grimy warehouse filled with garish animatronic hippogriffs and frantic workers scurrying back and forth down below. It was kind of heartbreaking, and planted a tiny seed of cynicism in my tiny child brain. But now I think that sometimes, in order to imbibe the full richness of life, it's okay to suspend your disbelief. As long as you're aware of reality, as long as you don't lose yourself in the illusion, it's okay to let your mind bring down the warehouse walls. It's okay to let yourself believe in the magic.